Hi, I'm here with a dear friend of mine and an incredible musician, Heatherlyn, on the eve of her Storydwelling release. Heatherlyn, thanks so much for joining us today.
Having me. This is great.
The concept of stories and telling stories seems to be everywhere I look these days. And I don't know if that's because of where I am in life or if it's just more common in general, but how did you come up with the name Storydwelling for this album?
Mm. Yeah, it kind of emerged over time as my husband and I set out on the road and we began to travel. And, as independent artists especially, we're engaged pretty significantly in the people that we work with around the country. So especially as we started out, the beginning of 2010, we just really hit the road hard and visited a few different regions and spent a lot of time over coffee listening deeply to the stories of people who were hosting us and people in those cities that were really making a difference. And we also were having these really interesting and somewhat transformative experiences as we would be hosted by a lot of different kinds of people. And we started to feel like it was almost like we were entering their stories, like we were dwelling in their home and in their space and in their lives, and sometimes having a sense of being surrounded by their story, like sometimes in the simple things like the photos of their families and people that are important to them, like memories they've made in their lives. And sometimes when it comes to the kind of like news station they have on and what books they're reading and just the kind of world views and perspectives they have on life kind of surrounds you, like as you enter and you dwell in that. And it, of course, it was important for us to be present to that. And whether it was someone who was very much like us or very different from us, living together for 5 days, whether we maybe agreed or didn't agree with some of those things, we felt like we were changed on the inside, even though our minds weren't changed, because we experienced hospitality and generosity from these people and the common humanity and, and other things that we share in common. So that was part of like kind of experiencing Storydwelling. And another factor, another significant story, another thing that happened that was really significant to Storydwelling emerging in my mind was some time that we spent in Seattle with a guy who, before he decided to kind of devote his life to being a friend and fellow traveler of the unhoused community in his city, he had decided he was going to ask the bums, the baristas, and the bouncers a question. And he asked about 300 people, if there was one thing that you could do to make your city a better place, what would it be? And he said that probably about 275 out of the 300 said, if I could just get someone to listen to my story. And then I had a really sacred experience, what felt like a sacred experience, as I spent time on Alberta Street in Portland, Oregon, with a community called Enter Being. And every time they gather, they're an interfaith community. And when they gather, someone is invited to share their story. And there's a little bit of preparation done with them so that they have really thought about it and put some intention around how they share it. And everyone listens deeply, and they're kind of in this practice of listening deeply. And then people will reflect back how it connects to their story and what they learned from that person sharing their story. And part of the time together is sharing some readings and some music that person has selected that reflects part of their story. And I just felt so honored in that experience. And like I said, it felt kind of sacred and just beautiful to realize that my being present to my story and how it has shaped me then can be of benefit and blessing to others as they are also present to it. And it's something that we can share together as we kind of exchange in that. And then the last thing I would say that, I've said it, like, if anyone gets the album, they can look inside and see that I've sort of defined story dwelling as cultivating a compassionate and courageous curiosity for each other. And I think that's really important, especially in this time where it seems like a lot of culture, society, some leaders in our world encourage us to focus on what makes us different, what separates us, what divides us, and kind of encourages us to be afraid of one another rather than really listening and being willing to go, oh, well, maybe there's more to the story here, and maybe I should ask some kind questions. Maybe I should be a little bit more curious about this person that I have quick assumptions and judgments about. And maybe I should be present to my own story and why I have those assumptions. I just think that a lot of like healing and growth and just more productive community and society would come about if we just were willing to sort of listen to one another and ask some questions.
It's sort of amazing what happens when you listen, both to the listener and to the talker. It's really cool. Thanks for sharing that experience with us. This album, as I listen to it I've listened to it. It's in my car, and so I've listened to it over and over and over again.
I'm glad.
And there are some really intensely personal songs, and also some very moving songs, as far as moving us to action on our beliefs and listening to one another and looking out for one another. Do you have any favorites on the album? Any personal favorites?
Well, every song certainly has some significance and deeper meaning to me. I am pretty excited about Put On Your Climbing Shoes. It's probably one of the most rockin' out songs on the album.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate the production and what that song became in the course of making the album is really fun for me to listen to and enjoy. You'll Never Know isn't necessarily a favorite song, but it certainly is one of the most personal in terms of telling my story. And, I had tried to write a couple songs in my life about growing up without a dad. And this was the song that I finally wanted to finish it, refine it, and it had something to say that I wanted to share with the world about growing up without a dad and that experience of abandonment, because I know that I'm not the only one who has that kind of story.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I enjoy a lot of the songs, and not just because they're my songs, but but because I just take so much delight in the community that brought their gifts to it. Like, they got to play on it are just amazing, and they didn't just bring their great skill, they brought their heart and soul to the project, Wayfaring Stranger is a traditional spiritual on the album that I just love, and I think that resonates with so many people because it's very honest and very real about that feeling of being a wayfaring stranger that we sometimes have in life, but it also has a lot of hope in it. And that gets pretty rockin' too, I would say.
It's a good variety. I like that there's some rockin' and some slow, and my new personal favorite is the lullaby. So the album releases tomorrow, and when the interview airs, then people will be able to get it. So where can they get their copy?
Yeah, well, they should check out Heatherlyn.mov, and it will also be on cdbaby.com.
Okay.
And Storydwelling is the name of the album, which you maybe have mentioned already, but I don't know. Anyway, you got there. And I have to double check to make sure that everything's in place today, but it should be on iTunes and Amazon and pretty much all your favorite music download sites.
Great. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to the official release of the album tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, thank you.